I am 26 years old, and for the last 5 years, I had been working two jobs to save up for a down payment on a small house. It was my only goal. Every extra dollar went into a high-yield savings account, and I watched the balance grow with a fierce, quiet pride. It was my future, a tangible thing I was building for myself, brick by financial brick. My family saw my discipline not as ambition, but as a personal failing. They called me a miser, a hermit. They said I was hoarding my money when I should be enjoying life, by which they meant I should be funding their enjoyment of life. My sister, Anna, was the center of their universe. She was 2 years older, perpetually in some kind of glamorous, self-inflicted crisis that required my parents' full attention and, often, their financial support. They didn't have much to give, so they often looked to me. My brother, Mark, was usually a passive observer, caught between their expectations and his own desire to stay out of the drama. He rarely took a side, which, in our family, was the same as taking theirs. The line was crossed on a Tuesday morning. I was checking my credit card statements online, a weekly ritual of mine. I had 3 cards, all with pristine payment histories and low balances. Or so I thought. My heart stopped. The balance on my primary card, the one with the highest limit, was over $20,000. I clicked on the transaction history, my hand trembling so hard I could barely control the mouse. Flight tickets. First class. To an exclusive resort in the Maldives. The charge was from 3 days ago. Then there were more. A charge for the resort itself, a 5-night stay in an overwater bungalow. Charges for diving excursions, spa packages, and private dinners. I frantically checked my other 2 cards. They were also nearly maxed out. New luggage from a high-end brand. Designer swimwear. Travel insurance. The total was just over $30,000. It had to be fraud. A skimmer, a data breach, something. I felt a surge of adrenaline and fear. I immediately called the credit card company. The representative was calm and methodical. She asked me a series of security questions, which I answered through gritted teeth. "Ma'am, can you confirm if you have the physical cards in your possession?" she asked. I pulled my wallet from my purse, my fingers fumbling with the clasp. I opened it. The slots where I kept my 3 credit cards were empty. A cold dread washed over me, so intense it made me feel dizzy. "No," I whispered into the phone. "They're gone," the representative continued. "I see. Well, the good news is that these charges were all made with the physical cards and the correct security codes. The names on the airline tickets are, let me see, one for a Pamela, one for a David, one for an Anna, and one for a Mark. Pamela and David are my parents. Anna is my sister. Mark is my brother." The air left my lungs in a single, painful rush. It wasn't a faceless thief from across the world. It was them. My own family. They had taken my cards, my savings, my future, and were going on the vacation of a lifetime. The vacation Anna had been talking about for months, the one I had repeatedly told them I could not afford to go on, let alone pay for. The betrayal was so sharp, so absolute, it felt like a physical wound. They hadn't just stolen my money. They had looked me in the eye, smiled, and then systematically dismantled the future I had worked so hard to build, all for a week of sunshine and luxury. In that moment, the hurt was quickly consumed by a cold, clear rage. They thought I would just take it. They thought I would cry, maybe yell, and then ultimately forgive them and figure out how to pay it off. They had underestimated me for the last time. My first instinct was to call them and scream, to demand they come back, that they undo what they had done. But I stopped myself. My hands were still shaking, but my mind was starting to work. A confrontation now would do nothing. They would be on a plane or already there. They would gaslight me, call me dramatic, promise to pay me back with money they didn't have. It would be a storm of empty words and manufactured guilt, and I would be left with the bill. No. That was the old me. The new me, born in the shock of this betrayal, was going to be much more methodical. I needed a plan. I needed to think. I took a deep breath and opened my laptop again. I went to Anna's social media page. Her profile was a curated collection of carefree moments, most of which I knew were funded by our parents or indirectly by me. Her latest post was from the day before. It was a picture of a new passport holder with a caption that read, "Time for the adventure of a lifetime." Feeling so blessed and surprised. The lie was so blatant it was almost comical. There were comments from her friends, all expressing envy and excitement. My mother had commented with a string of heart emojis. It was all a performance, a happy family charade built on my stolen money. I needed to confirm they were gone. I couldn't act until I was sure they were out of the country and unreachable. I decided to call my mom. I rehearsed my opening line, keeping my voice light and casual. I dialed her number. It rang twice and went to voicemail. I tried my dad. Voicemail. I tried Anna. Straight to voicemail. Finally, I called Mark. He picked up on the third ring. "Hey," he said, his voice sounding distant and crackly, with the unmistakable hum of an airplane cabin in the background. My blood ran cold. "Mark, where are you?" I asked, keeping my tone even. We're on a plane," he said, sounding flustered. "Mom and Dad and Anna, we're all here." It was a surprise trip Anna's friend arranged, another lie. He was a terrible liar.
À surprise?
"That's amazing," I said, the words tasting like poison. "Where are you going?" "I'm not sure. The connection is bad," he stammered. "I think we're about to take off. I'll call you when we land." The line went dead. He hung up on me. That was all the confirmation I needed. They were in the air, trapped in a metal tube for the next 12 to 14 hours. Now it was time to work. I went back to the credit card websites. I meticulously went through every single charge. I downloaded the statements as PDF files and saved them to a folder on my desktop labeled Evidence. I took screenshots of every transaction, highlighting the dates, the amounts, and the merchant names. I saw the whole story laid out in a series of charges. It started 2 weeks ago. Small, insidious purchases. A new suitcase from a luxury brand charged to my second card. 4 sets of noise-canceling headphones from an electronics store on my third card. A series of online orders for resort wear, all shipped to my parents' address. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was a premeditated conspiracy. They had been planning this for weeks, slowly and carefully using my credit to assemble their vacation wardrobe and gear, testing the waters to see if I would notice. The audacity was breathtaking. I remembered visiting them for dinner about 10 days ago. My mom had hugged me at the door, her embrace feeling a little too tight, a little too long. My dad had been unusually cheerful, asking about my work with a level of interest he rarely showed. Anna had been smug, making little comments about how I needed to live a little. At the time, I had dismissed it as their usual dynamic. Now I realized they were acting. They were performing for me, the unwitting benefactor of their grand heist. My purse had been on the kitchen counter that night. They must have taken the cards then. It would have been so easy. While my mom distracted me with questions about dessert, my dad or Anna could have slipped them out of my wallet in seconds. The thought made me feel sick to my stomach. It was like a scene from a movie, except the villains were my own parents and sister. The more I thought about it, the more the pieces fell into place. How did they get my PINs and security codes? My mind flashed back to a month earlier. My mom had called me in a panic, claiming her computer was broken and she needed to order a gift online for a friend's birthday. She had asked if she could use my laptop. I, of course, said yes. She had sat next to me as I navigated to the website and then asked me to enter my card details for her. "My hands are so shaky today, dear," she had said. "You're so much faster." I had typed in my card number, expiration date, and the 3-digit code on the back, with her watching my every move. She must have memorized them, or written them down the second I turned my back. It was so simple, so manipulative. She had used my trust, my willingness to help her, as a tool to rob me. The sense of violation was profound. They hadn't just taken my money, they had weaponized my love for them against me. My anger began to solidify into a strategy. A cold, precise plan. I was not going to be a victim. I was going to be the consequence. They had left me with a $30,000 debt and a shattered sense of security. I was going to leave them stranded on the other side of the world with nothing. I looked up the flight number from the credit card statement. A quick search online brought up the flight tracker. The plane was currently over the Atlantic Ocean. They had passed the point of no return. They couldn't turn back now. The timing was perfect. Before I executed my plan, I decided to send one last message. A final test to see if any of them had a shred of conscience. I opened up the family group chat. I typed, "Hey everyone, has anyone else been getting weird fraud alerts? I just saw a huge charge on my card that I didn't make." A little worried, I hit send and watched the screen. 3 edits appeared next to Anna's name almost immediately. Then they vanished. A minute later, she replied, "Nope, all good here. You should probably call your bank. Hope you get it sorted." The exclamation point felt like a tiny, cheerful knife twisting in my gut. My dad didn't even bother to reply. My mom sent a private message a few moments later. "Oh, honey, that's terrible. Don't you worry, these things happen. The bank will take care of it. Just be more careful with your cards next time, more careful." The condescension was infuriating. They weren't just thieves. They were arrogant thieves. They were so certain they had gotten away with it. That was their biggest mistake. That was the final confirmation I needed. There was no remorse, no guilt. Just a breezy, dismissive arrogance. My resolve hardened. I picked up the phone and dialed the number for my primary credit card's fraud department. This time, my voice was steady.
"Hello," I said.
"I need to report a series of fraudulent transactions. My physical cards were stolen by my family members, and they have used them to book an international vacation." The agent on the other end was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Okay, ma'am.
Let's go through this step by step."
I'm going to need you to confirm your identity, and then we will start a formal investigation." I spent the next hour on the phone, methodically detailing every single charge. The flights, the hotel, the luggage, the clothes, the excursions. I gave her the names of my parents, my sister, and my brother. I explained how they had taken the cards and how they had likely obtained my security information. The agent was professional and empathetic. "This is a serious offense, ma'am," she said. "It's considered familial fraud. We will launch a full investigation. We will be contacting all of the merchants to inform them that the payments were made using a stolen card." I felt a grim satisfaction. "What does that mean for the reservations?" I asked. "It means they will be canceled," she replied. "The airline will be notified that the tickets were purchased fraudulently, and the hotel will be informed that their payment is being reversed. The charges will be removed from your account pending the outcome of the investigation." I repeated this process with the other 2 credit card companies. Each call was a nail in the coffin of their luxury vacation. With each confirmation that the fraud claims were filed, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about justice. It was about taking back control. They had made me feel powerless, like a resource to be plundered. Now the power was mine. I had the truth, and I had the system on my side. After the calls were done, I sat in silence for a long time. I imagined the scene when they landed. They would walk off the plane, tanned from their imaginary sun, full of smug satisfaction. They would arrive at the 5-star resort, ready to check into their overwater bungalow. And they would be told their reservation didn't exist. Their payment had been declined. Their return tickets, which they wouldn't even think to check until the end of the week, would also be void. They would be in a foreign country, thousands of miles from home, with no hotel, no flight back, and no money. They would have spent their own cash on souvenirs and cocktails, assuming the big-ticket items were covered by my life savings. They would be completely, utterly stranded. A smile touched my lips. It wasn't a happy smile, but it was a deeply satisfying one. I checked the flight tracker again. The plane was now halfway across the ocean. There was no turning back. I got up and went to my kitchen. I made myself a cup of tea. As I waited for the water to boil, I looked around my small apartment. It was modest, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture, every book on the shelf, was something I had worked for. My family had tried to take that away from me. They had tried to steal the future I was building within these walls. but they had failed. The next few hours were the longest of my life. I tracked their flight obsessively. I watched the tiny airplane icon crawl across the map, getting closer and closer to its destination. I thought about the conversation that was coming. I knew they would call me, first confused, then angry, then desperate. I rehearsed what I would say. I would be calm. I would be firm. I would not let them manipulate me or guilt-trip me. I would simply state the facts. You are thieves.
You did this to yourselves.
Finally, the flight tracker showed that the plane had landed. The waiting was over. Now the fallout would begin. I put my phone on the table in front of me and waited. An hour passed. Then another. I started to wonder if they had found another way, if they had a backup plan. But I knew they didn't. They were too arrogant, too sure of themselves. They had never needed a backup plan before because I had always been their safety net. Then my phone rang. The caller ID showed my dad's number. I took a deep, steadying breath and answered. "Hello," I said, my voice as neutral as I could make it. "What did you do?" he roared, his voice tinny and distorted with rage. There was chaos in the background, voices shouting in a language I didn't recognize. "I have no idea what you're talking about," I said calmly. "Don't play dumb with me," he yelled. "We're at the resort, and they're saying our reservation was canceled. They said the credit card was reported stolen. You need to call them and fix this right now." I let the silence hang in the air for a moment. "There's nothing to fix, Dad," I said, my voice cold and even. "The cards were stolen." "I reported them. They weren't stolen," he sputtered. "We had them. We were going to pay you back." "Pay me back?" I asked, a bitter laugh escaping my lips.
When?
"When were you going to pay me back the $30,000 you stole from me? Was it before or after you maxed out my credit? Was it before or after you lied to my face for weeks? You didn't just borrow my cards. You conspired to defraud me." "That's a crime." I could hear my mother in the background now, her voice rising in a hysterical wail. "How could you do this to us? We're your family. We're stranded. You stranded yourselves the moment you decided my future was less important than your vacation," I shot back. The phone was suddenly snatched away, and Anna's shrill voice filled my ear. "You are a selfish, jealous brat," she shrieked. "You couldn't stand that I was having one nice thing, so you had to ruin it. I hate you." Her words, meant to wound me, had no effect. The anger had burned away, leaving behind a hard, clear certainty. "Jealous," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "I'm not the one who had to steal to feel important, Anna. I'm not the one whose entire life is a performance for social media. You want to know what I have that you don't? Self-respect. I earn my money. I built my life. You just take. You're a thief, and Mom and Dad are your accomplices. You are all exactly where you deserve to be." There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. I think they had expected me to break, to cry, to give in. They had never heard this tone from me before. "You have a problem," I continued, pressing my advantage. "But it is not my problem to solve. Do not contact me again." Before they could respond, I ended the call. Then I blocked their numbers. All of them. The silence in my apartment was absolute. I felt a strange combination of adrenaline and peace. The confrontation had been draining, but it had also been liberating. I had stood up for myself. I had drawn a line that they could never cross again. The next day, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Mark. His voice was quiet, full of shame. "I'm so sorry," he said. "I knew it was wrong. I told them it was a crazy idea, but they didn't listen. Anna and Mom just steamrolled everyone, and you went along with it," I said, my voice flat. There was no anger left, just a deep, weary disappointment. "You watched them steal from me, Mark. You got on that plane. You lied to me. That makes you just as guilty." "I know," he whispered. "We're at the embassy now. They're arranging a flight home for us." It's a nightmare. Mom is crying, and Dad and Anna are just screaming at everyone." "That sounds about right," I said. "What do you want from me, Mark?" "I don't know," he said. I wanted to say I'm sorry. I appreciate that," I said, and I meant it in a distant sort of way. "But sorry doesn't fix this. I need you to understand that. Our relationship, the family, it's not going to be the same. He was quiet for a long time. I know, he finally said. I get it. I wished him a safe flight home and hung up. I didn't block his number. Maybe, in time, there was a path forward for him, but not for the others. A few days later, I got a call from my aunt, my dad's sister. She was a no-nonsense woman I had always admired. I just got a hysterical call from your father, she said, her voice grim. He was demanding I wire him thousands of dollars. He told me some wild story about you having a breakdown and getting their vacation canceled. I have a feeling there's more to it than that. I took a deep breath and told her everything. I told her about the stolen cards, the $30,000 in charges, the lies, the social media posts. I emailed her the screenshots of the credit card statements while we were on the phone. She was silent as she looked through them. When she spoke again, her voice was filled with a cold fury I had never heard from her before. Those absolute fools, she seethed. I am so sorry, sweetheart. I am so sorry they did this to you. You did the right thing. Do not give them a single penny. They made their bed, and now they can lie in it. Her validation was like a balm on a raw wound. It was a relief to know that I wasn't crazy, that my reaction wasn't an overreaction. My family returned home a week later. Not on a first-class flight, but on an economy ticket purchased with a loan from the government, which they would have to repay. They didn't come back with tans and souvenirs. They came back humiliated and broke. Word had gotten out through my aunt. The rest of the extended family knew what they had done. The shame was a far greater punishment than the financial hardship. Their public image, which they valued so highly, was shattered. They were no longer the perfect, generous family. They were the family who stole from their own daughter to fund a vacation. The first thing I did after I knew they were back was hire a locksmith. I had all the locks on my apartment changed. I didn't know if they had a key, but I wasn't taking any chances. I also went to a new bank, one they knew nothing about, and opened new accounts. I transferred all my savings, which had been fully refunded by the credit card companies, into the new account. I cut up the new credit cards they sent me and opted for a simple debit card instead. I was severing every financial tie that connected me to them. A week after their return, a thick envelope arrived in my mailbox. It was addressed to me in my mother's handwriting. I knew what it would be. A letter full of accusations, justifications, and demands. An attempt to rewrite history and paint me as the villain. I held it in my hands for a moment. The old me would have opened it. The old me would have let their words crawl under my skin and fester. But I wasn't the old me anymore. I walked to the kitchen, opened the lid of the trash can, and dropped the unopened letter inside. I felt nothing but a profound sense of peace. Life became quiet after that. The constant hum of family drama that had been the background noise of my entire existence was gone. The silence was strange at first, but then it became comfortable. It became peace. I focused on my work. I started looking at house listings again. The dream that they had tried to steal from me was still there, waiting for me. It was a little further away now, but it was still mine. A few months passed. I had occasional, stilted conversations with Mark. He was trying to rebuild his life, to untangle himself from our parents and sister. He told me they were a mess. My dad was sullen and angry all the time. My mom cried constantly. Anna had retreated into a world of social media, posting old pictures from past trips and pretending her life was still glamorous. They were trapped in the wreckage they had created. They had tried to make me small, to take from me until I had nothing left. But they had failed. I had refused to be their victim. I had taken back my power, my money, and my future. And in doing so, I had finally learned what it felt like to be truly free. They had wanted a vacation to remember. I had given them one. They would be paying for it, in one way or another, for the rest of their lives. And that was the most satisfying justice of all. I stopped giving warnings and started setting boundaries. It turned out that a boundary, when enforced, feels a lot like a locked door to people who are used to walking all over you. They finally learned what it feels like to be on the outside, looking in. And I was finally on the inside of my own life, safe and sound. The fallout continued in small, satisfying ways. My aunt made it a point to tell the story at every family gathering I chose to skip. She did it not out of malice, she claimed, but as a cautionary tale. The result was that my parents and Anna became social pariahs within their own family. Cousins who used to flock to my mother for her supposed wisdom now avoided her. Uncles who once clapped my dad on the back now gave him a wide berth. Anna's friends, who had been so envious of her surprise trip, began to distance themselves when the true story emerged. Her carefully constructed image of a blessed, carefree globetrotter was replaced by the far less appealing reality of a spoiled thief. Mark called me one evening, about 6 months after the incident. He sounded tired. "They're trying to sell the house," he said. "They can't afford the mortgage anymore." Dad lost some clients at his small business after the story got around, and Mom's part-time job let her go. They said it was budget cuts, but it wasn't. I listened, not feeling pity, but a sense of grim inevitability. Actions have consequences. It was the simplest rule of the universe, one they had always felt they were exempt from. "Where will they go?" I asked, my curiosity clinical rather than emotional. "They want to move in with me," he said, and for the first time, I heard real panic in his voice. "They think because I have a 2-bedroom apartment, they can just take over the spare room. They're talking about it like it's already decided." This was his test. This was the moment he had to choose whether to continue enabling them or to finally draw his own line in the sand. "What did you tell them?" I asked. There was a long pause. "I told them no," he said, his voice gaining a little strength. "I told them I couldn't. I told them I was saving up to go back to school, and I needed my space. It was the hardest thing I've ever done." Mom started crying and Dad called me an ungrateful son. "Good for you, Mark," I said, and I truly meant it. "That was brave." "It didn't feel brave," he confessed. "It felt terrifying. But it also felt right. I can't keep setting myself on fire to keep them warm." "I think that's what you taught me." Our relationship began to slowly mend after that conversation. It wasn't the same as it was before, and it never would be. The trust was gone. But a new kind of relationship was forming, one built on a shared understanding of our family's toxicity and a mutual desire to escape it. He was starting to see what I had seen for years, that their love was conditional, transactional, and ultimately destructive. As for me, my life blossomed in their absence. The 2 jobs became one, as I got a promotion that came with a significant raise. The peace and quiet in my life allowed me to focus, to be better at my job, to think more clearly. The energy I had once spent managing my family's endless dramas was now channeled into my own goals. 6 months after that, I found it. A small, 2-bedroom bungalow with a little garden in the back. It was perfect. The down payment I had saved, the one they had tried to turn into a handful of fleeting memories in the Maldives, was finally put to its intended use. Signing the closing papers was one of the best moments of my life. I sat at a large mahogany table in a lawyer's office, my hand steady as I signed my name over and over again. Each signature felt like a declaration of independence. When the lawyer handed me the keys, I held them in my palm, the cool metal a comforting weight. They weren't just keys to a house. They were the keys to my future, a future I had reclaimed. I spent the first weekend in my new home painting the walls. I chose a soft, calming shade of blue for the living room. As I rolled the paint onto the blank white walls, I thought about the clean slate I had been given. I had lost a family, but I had gained myself. It was a painful trade, but a necessary one. I would carry the scars of their betrayal, but they would no longer define me. They were a part of my past, a closed chapter in a book I was still writing. One day, while unpacking a box of old photos, I came across a picture of the 5 of us, taken years ago at a holiday dinner. We were all smiling for the camera. For a moment, a pang of sadness hit me. Sadness for the family I wished I had, for the love I thought was real. But then I looked closer. I saw the strain in my own smile. I saw the entitlement in Anna's eyes. I saw the placating expression on my mother's face and the detached arrogance in my father's. It was all there even then. The dynamics that led to the theft had been brewing for years. The vacation wasn't an aberration. It was an inevitability. It was the culmination of a lifetime of disrespect and entitlement. I put the photo back in the box and taped it shut. I carried it out to the garage and put it on a high shelf, out of sight. I would not throw it away because it was a part of my story, but I would not display it because it was not a part of my home. My home was a place of peace, of safety, of my own making, and there was no room for them in it anymore. The last I heard, through a cousin, was that my parents were renting a small, rundown apartment in a town an hour away. Anna was living with them, unable to afford a place of her own. They had sold the family home for less than it was worth, and the money was quickly dwindling. They had gotten their week of luxury. Now they had a lifetime of consequences to enjoy. And as for me, I planted a garden. I watched the flowers grow. I built a life that was quiet and stable and entirely my own. And it was more beautiful than any overwater bungalow I could ever imagine.